Hello everyone, today I'm going to show you how to add a gun into 7 Days to Die Alpha 20. So the first thing to do is download Unity if you haven't got it already. For Alpha 20 we are using Unity 2020.3, any version after is fine as long as it is 2020.3. So you would go to the Unity archive website. I'll leave the link for this in the description, and just download the Unity hub. And when you install that, open up your Unity hub and go to installs, add, and then click on the recommended release, which is 2020.3.25 F1 at this time. So when you have Unity installed, we're gonna make a new project. I have a bunch of projects, but you probably won't have any if you're doing this new. So select 3D. We don't want to use any of these because the game does not support those. So select 3D and I will name it Gun Tutorial, and we're gonna create a project. So for this tutorial I'm going to be using the Italian machine gun model from Unity Store. I'll also leave a link in the description for this asset if anyone wants to use the same one for their game. You can find a lot of free models on the Unity Store and other places. So once we have Unity loaded up in a fresh project, it should look like this. You can change the positions however you want. First thing to do is click on Edit, go into Project Settings, and then click on Player and scroll down till you see Color Space and set that to linear. You always want to do that for 7 Days to Die because it will make the textures look better. And once you've done that, we are going to import our model. So go to Window, Package Manager. This is going to bring up your assets from your Unity store that you can import directly into Unity. So if I search Italian machine, oh, it's there. It pops up there, Italian machine gun, and you click download, and you can import it then straight into your project. So once we have the model, there's a few other things we need to add. So for the new gun method in Alpha, which was introduced I think in Alpha 18, first the attachments are included directly on the gun, and they are just enabled in game when the attachments are put on the gun. So a child object is hidden in Unity and then enabled in the game when you attach a gun mod. So we need to have some attachments. So I have some of my own attachments that I've made that I will leave in the description as well if anybody wishes to use them. They are just the basic Alpha 19 attachments, but they all work. The laser sight works, the flashlight works, all of them work. Yeah, you can also extract your own ones if you would like from the game to use. So as you see, I have a 2x scope, 4x scope, 8x scope, flashlight, gun laser, a hollow sight, and a silencer. So everything you will need for a gun. So before we get started, we need to get a vanilla gun model to compare it to get the positioning. So to do that, we use a program called Asset Ripper. We used to use one called A20 Ripper for Alpha 19, but that one no longer works. So we're using a program called Asset Ripper. I'll leave a link to that as well in the description. Alright, so once we have Asset Ripper installed, we need to find where the vanilla gun is stored. So we need to open up the vanilla XML and look for mesh file. So as we can see, it's stored other items, weapons, range, AK-47, and then AK-47 prefab. So what we need to do is navigate to our vanilla file, go to data, click on bundles, and see other like we saw in the XML, and then here you have the items file. So copy that file and just put it on your desktop somewhere. So once we have the items file, we'll open up Asset Ripper and just drag it in. So now once everything is imported, just click export and export all files and just put it in any folder. I've created a assets alpha 20 folder, so just put it in any folder. Now the export process can take quite some time, so just give it a few minutes and I'll be back when it's done. Alright, so once Asset Ripper is done extracting everything, it should say export complete down the bottom and give you a pop-up, and you should have all the files in the folder that you saved. So now we're going to go into Unity. I've created a new folder called Vanilla Items. I'm going to minimize Unity and I'll just drag the whole folder into there. Alright, so once you have all your assets imported, just click into the folder, click on the search bar, type AK-47 or whatever the name of the gun is you want to find. And as you can see, we're looking for this one. You can see there's the model, so if we drag it up to the scene, we can see there is the vanilla Alpha 20 AK-47 that we can compare the positioning of to our gun. Alright, so once we have our vanilla weapon in the scene, don't change any of the transforms or anything because it's in the correct position for the game now. So once we have that, we're going to go to our Italian machine gun prefab and we're going to bring it in. And as you can see, it is already too big and rotated the wrong way for the game. So we need to fix that. So I've expanded everything. I'm going to unpack the prefab, and as you can see, this model has 3 meshes. So it has a trigger, a magazine which can be moved, which is for animation if you want to do advanced animation on your gun, but I'm just going to be using the basic animations in the game, which are fine for most cases. So as you can see, it has also an animator, which we do not need. We can remove that because we're not going to be adding any animations to our gun. The game will take care of that. So once you have your gun in the scene and your vanilla one, right click, create an empty, make sure you set the transforms to 000 with these 3 dots, reset, and name it to whatever you want to name your gun. It doesn't really matter what you name it, but try and make a unique name. I'm going to call this Machine Gun Tutorial. So once you have that, grab your gun from the top and drag it into the machine gun. So now the machine gun is the parent of the Italian machine guns. Make sure you also change this name down here, because if it's the same name as your FBX file, it can cause issues in game. So I'm just going to call it Gun Tutorial. So as we can see, the gun is rotated the wrong way for the game because the AK-47 is pointing to the Z direction. So what I want to do is click on Gun Tutorial. Do not scale the top one, that will have issues in game and it will not show up. Always scale this one. So we want to go to rotation -90. Now you can see it is in the correct rotation, but the scale is still way too big for the game. So for 7 Days to Die guns, it's usually about 0.1 for the scale. It can differ depending on the weapon, but you just have to play around with it till you can get it to work. So as you can see, that's a little bit too small. So we'll try 1.2. 1.2 is a little bit too big as well. So we'll try 0.15, and that looks about right. So the main thing you want to try and get right is the back of the gun lined up and the front of the gun. The trigger does not matter so much. You want to try and align the scope as best you can and check from the side as well. Alright, so that's good enough. Now we have to add the attachments to the gun. So we're going to hide the AK, and I have this folder here called attachments. So here's all the ones I showed you earlier, all different attachments we can add to the gun. So first thing we have to do is click on the parent, create an empty, and call it attachments. It's important that you spell this with a capital and that it's spelled correctly. We still need to add these old attachments to the gun or the game will give an error, but this is not actually going to be used by the game. So under attachments, create another empty, call it barrel, and again another empty, call it side, and again create another empty and call it scope. Now these do not need to be moved or anything, they do not matter at all, it's just here so the game doesn't throw an error at us. And now back to the machine gun parent and create another empty and call it muzzle. Now this is important, it will be used for where the game is going to attach the muzzle flash for your gun, so you would put it around the end of the barrel of the gun. You can also turn it so you can see where it would go. So that looks pretty close, and yeah, that's good. So now we need to add the actual physical attachments to the gun, where the game will enable when we put on the gun attachments in game. So as I showed you earlier, I have all of these here all set up correctly for you, and you can download them from the description. So first off, we're gonna do a scope. So this is, usually I do a 4x scope for a rifle like this. So pretty much just drag the attachment onto the parent, and as you can see, it appears now in your scene. And unpack the prefab. Now this has to be called just scope in lowercase like that. The reason I have it named 2x, 4x, 8x is because I have multiple of them, but you should always rename it to just scope. That's also what is in the XML, so you can reference from there. So now, once you have that, you need to position it on your gun where you think a scope would go. So I'm going to do it roughly, but that looks okay. You can also click up here and go into 3D view and have a look and see if it looks good on your gun. So that looks okay, not too bad. Now let's do the next one. Now it's very important, once you have your attachment done, that you go up here and press this little button to hide it, because it needs to be hidden before we export it, otherwise it will already be enabled in the game. So basically what the game will do is when you put on the gun mod, it will just turn this on and it will be visible. So make sure it's hidden, and now we're going to add the flashlight. So drag the flashlight to the parent. As you can see, it's right there. So I'm going to expand everything, unpack the prefab. So as you can see, my flashlight, the light source is already hidden, which is what you want for the game, because when you press F, this is going to be enabled, and then you can see the flashlight light comes on. So the ones that I've included in the description already have the flashlight turned off, which is what you want. So now if we go back to move view, we can see where we want to put the flashlight. So maybe if I put in 2D view, we can put it near the end of the gun, maybe not clipping too much, so move it over a bit. So that looks decent enough. Yeah, you can make it more accurate. I'm just doing it roughly. So same thing, once the flashlight is in place, hide the top one, and we're going to go on to the next one. So next we have the gun laser. We're going to do the same thing, drag it up to the top, expand everything, and click unpack prefab. So there's the gun laser. We're going to move it somewhere to the front as well. And as you can see with the gun laser, the same thing, the laser is hidden, so when you press F, it will turn on the laser. As you can see, I can't see in Unity, but the laser is there. So it hides the laser flicker, glow, dust, and all that stuff. It's basically a particle system for the laser, but it needs to be hidden. Now grabbing the top laser, we're gonna position it so it's a little bit off. Make sure you're always selecting the top one. And yeah, that looks okay. Now same process, I'm gonna hide it again. And now we're onto the hollow sight. So drag in the hollow sight, same process. You can press Alt and left click to expand everything, and then unpack the prefab. And as you can see, we're going to drag the reflex sight. If you double click on it, you will zoom in as well, so that's easier to see where it's putting it. As you can see, the red dot is there, but it's a little bit off on the gun, so we're going to move a little bit to the center and place it where you would think it would go on the gun, where it would look good. So somewhere around there looks okay. And maybe move it down a slight bit. You want to make sure nothing is obstructing the view. This looks fine, it's not too high, and that looks okay. So same process, once you have it selected, click the hide button, and now the last thing to add is the silencer. So same idea, drag the silencer up to the parent, unpack the prefab, and this one only has like a mesh in there, so just drag it to the end of your gun where you would want to have your silencer show up. So roughly put it where you want your silencer to be, and same idea, now hide it. Alright, so now once we have everything set up like that, everything hidden, we're going to create a new folder. We're going to call it prefabs. Now you're going to close everything. You're going to go into your prefabs folder. You're going to drag this down here to create a prefab, and now you can see the gun preview. So now to actually export this into 7 Days to Die, we need an export script, which I will also leave in the description. I have it saved here, so it's just a CS script. You put it into your project and then you'll be able to export. So now go into your prefabs folder, right click, and you should see a new option called build multi-platform asset bundle. So click that and we'll save it to the desktop, and we'll name it gun tutorial, and we're going to save it. It's important that you do not name your asset bundle the same as your parent up here. Alright, once your asset bundle is done exporting, you should be able to see it. Here I have it on my desktop. It's a Unity 3D file. So I have a modelet template here set up. So I have gun tutorial modelet, and I'm going to create a folder called resources. So inside resources, drag your Unity 3D file into there, and now we're back to config, and I have 3 files: item modifiers, items, and recipes. So we first need to go into items. As you can see, I've brought in the vanilla AK-47 XML, and I also have the schematic here for it. So now this is a custom line I've added in, so it will reference mod folder, resources, and then we need to put in our prefab and Unity 3D file names here. So your Unity 3D file name here, so we'll go back into config, go back, resources, and now we know it's called gun tutorial. So F2, then copy, go back into the XML and paste that name right there. Now we need the prefab name from Unity, so go back into Unity and you'll see we named it machine gun tutorial. So F2, copy, and back into the XML and paste that right there, and that's it. So now save that. And you also want to change the name of your gun. I usually like to keep the naming quite similar to how vanilla does it, so I do gun machine gun tier 2 Italian rifle. We'll just call it that for now. So now copy that name, and we're gonna name the effect group the same thing, and we're gonna name the schematic the same thing, and we're gonna save that. And make sure you change the unlocks, so it actually unlocks your gun. And the custom icon, you can add a custom icon as well if you want, or it's going to use the AK-47 one if we leave it like that. So as you can see here, it's hold type number 48, which is for the AK-47. So the gun is going to be placed in the same hand position as we put the gun in Unity to the AK-47. And something important to know is make sure you have the attachments included tag, because that is required when you add the attachments on the gun yourself. Most of the new Alpha 20 guns have that included because they're switching over to the new system for pretty much all the guns, so that shouldn't be a problem. But just if it's not there, add in the attachments included tag. So now I'm going to go back into the folder where I saved my modelet. I'm going to go into config and recipes, and I'm going to add a recipe for my new gun. So I've copied the AK-47 recipe. It's AK parts, forged iron, all that stuff. So go back into your items, find the name of your gun, and just make the recipe name exactly the same as your gun. Alright, so now that's all we have to do for now. So we're going to load up the game and give it a test. So I'm going to create a new game, Navis game. Alright, so once the game's loaded up, we're going to go into creative menu. We're going to search Italian machine gun as we called it, and here the gun is. I haven't added an icon to it, but I'm going to assume that you know how to do that to do basic XML modding. So we're going to bring it down, and as you can see, there is our gun. But as we can see, the sights are a little bit off, so that needs some adjustment, but it does work. So we can fire it, and let's spawn a zombie just to give it a test. So zombie yo, we can kill him. And as you can see, it works no problem. So if we get a little bit more ammo, we can check the reload, and as you can see, it looks fairly on point to what the AK-47 looks like. So now, how do we fix the aim down sight? As you can see, it's a little bit off. So what you have to do is go back into the items XML. And as you can see, if you scroll down here till you find action 1, which is when you zoom in. As you can see, zoom in and zoom out. You can see the scope camera offset. So we have to adjust these numbers so that it is in the correct place for this gun. So I will not adjust these numbers because it takes quite some time and fiddling to get it correct, but you will get the hang of it eventually. So pretty much it's XYZ, this is left right, that is down and up, and this is back to front. So you can play with those until your scope lines up correctly. So now we want to test if our gun attachments that we added work on the gun. So we're going to go into creative mode again and type in mod gun, so they all should come up. Now we want the silencer, the laser, the flashlight, all the scopes, the reflex sight, that's all I think. So if we click modify, we can get rid of that because it doesn't go on the gun. So if we click silencer, as you can see, now there's a silencer on the gun and works as intended. And as you can see, the muzzle flash is also where we put it on Unity. So if we try out the laser sight, as we can see, the laser is now on the end of the gun. If we go to a darker area, we can try it on a wall. So as you see, if I click the laser pops up with F when I click F. Same goes for the flashlight. If I put the flashlight in and click F, it will turn on just as intended. And if I reload, you can see the flashlight on the gun as well. So if we put in a 2x scope, as you can see, it will appear on the gun. The glass doesn't look very good, but you can mess with that texture on Unity. And as you can see, if I zoom in and out, it works as intended. So last one to try is the reflex scope. So if I put that on, as you can see, it attaches it to the gun. But if we aim down, we can see it is a little bit off. So that is something else we need to adjust. So back into our modeler and into the config folder, we have a XML file item underscore modifiers. So if we click into that, we can see here I've set it up for you already. It's mod gun reflex sight, and I put the AK-47 one here, so you need to get the name of your gun again and name it the same. These two we actually do not need because we've added the offset and everything in Unity with the attachments, so we only need the scope camera offset. Now this one works exactly the same as the other one in the items down here. You need to just pretty much mess with the values until it looks good and that the crosshair lines up with the red dots. That is pretty much all you have to do to get your attachments working correctly. Alright, I've left a little note here that tells you what it does. So this number is left/right, middle number is down/up, and the one over here is back/front. So that should help you get the positions of the gun attachment incorrectly. And that is pretty much it for how to add a gun to 7 Days to Die Alpha 20. If you have any questions, please leave a comment and I will do my best to help you out.